Hey everybody, it's Casual Boops coming at you with another video, and today I'm going to try something different. This is going to be the first of what I hope is many of a video series that it's called Get Good, and I'm going to try my best to keep these videos nice and short and to give a little blurb, a little nugget of info. There's going to be something for very new players, the beginners. That's folks that have maybe less than 1,000 battles, still trying to figure out the ins and outs, the basics. Stuff for intermediate folks, which this is maybe like if you have several thousand battles, you've got some tier 8s, maybe a tier 10 or something like that, and you know things, but you're struggling to maybe improve. And then there's for the advanced folks. This is folks who maybe you're trying to think about maybe 2 marking a tank, or maybe you're trying to 3 mark a tank, or something like that. Those are folks that I kind of the targeted. That would be the folks that would be the target for the advanced tips. And I'll try to keep it short. Basically, 1 tip for beginners, intermediate, and advanced per video, with some examples and so on. And so, without further ado, we'll get right into it. So basically, for the beginners, and I guess you'll see in the upper right, I'm gonna hopefully have it where you can see it right now. You'll be able to tell just at a glance which part of the video you're in, because I'll have that in the upper right and be moving through it. You'll see the little red boxes. Anyways. So for this video, for beginners, what I'm going to talk about is, which lines to grind first, consumables basics, and then the very, very basics for crew. Okay, so if you're brand new to this game and you've just gotten through tutorial and it's given you a chance to get I think it starts with, what is it? The Germans, the Americans, and the USSR. You might be thinking, you look at this and oh my God, there's so much to do. Where do I start? What should I go with? I think probably for new players, probably the most useful thing, the best line to grind first is probably the IS-7 line, the USSR IS-7 line, because heavy tanks are, I'm not going to say that they're easy to play, right? But they're definitely you don't need to, they're not meant to be flexing around the map. You don't need to have quite as minutia, quite as good of a knowledge of map minutia, map specifics, and so on. You don't need to know. It requires less of you, right? So on the opposite end of the spectrum would be light tanks, where you really kind of need to know your stuff to get the maximum out of light tanks. But so anyways, the first thing I would say is grind the IS-7 line. Take your time through the tiers, right? The T28 is a great tank. The KV-1 is probably the best beginner-friendly heavy tank. I think it's going to teach you all the right habits, all the right things. If you angle properly, it works great. It's a great tank. It's just a great solid tank. KV-1 is okay. IS is actually surprisingly good, and the IS-3 is there's no stinkers in this line, and they all play fairly similarly. And they will gradually, they get more and more armor as you go up, and they'll teach you how to, work. It's just going to be a very gentle experience, I hope, more so than other lines. So grind the IS-7 line first, but don't be in a rush to get down the line. Tier 10 is very unforgiving, so I think the IS-7 is probably the best for a beginner, but a beginner's still not really going to have a great time at Tier 10. So, don't feel like you need to rush to Tier 10 because that's where the game starts. No, I would say, the game starts to kind of normalize at Tier 4. It's still a little bit chaotic and so on, but Tier 5 is where tanks start to get their identities. Medium tanks are medium tanks, and heavy tanks start to get armor, and light tanks start to get fast, and anyways, things like that. So don't be afraid to, I guess, move out of tiers 1, 2, 3, because they're a little chaotic. They don't really represent the main game, I would say. I would say Tier 4 and 5 is where you start to get a feel for what World of Tanks really is. So grind the IS-7 line first, and then after you're finished with that, I would say the Americans, the M48 Patton is probably the next line that I would recommend for mediums, right? Because now once you've figured out how to do heavy tanks, then you're saying, I would say the medium tanks are probably, this is the next way to go, because again, they're very comfortable, right? From Tier 4 all the way on up, they have at least 10 degrees. I want to say around 10 degrees. They all have great gun depression, right? I think the M4 has 12 degrees of gun depression or something like that, and so the EZ8 has 10, T20 has 10, Pershing has 10, M46 has 10. I think the Patton has 9. But the point is, they're all going to play comfy. You're not going to have to worry about it's going to teach you how to be hull down, poking ridges. They're all fairly mobile. They've all got fairly solid guns, and so I think this is going to be your next step is go with these, and then you know, again, to try to just get to the pattern. But don't rush to tier 10. Enjoy the journey. Try it out. Learn what you can at the mid tiers. And they're solid tanks, so give that a shot. Those are the 2 lines I would start with, and then from there, you know, I guess if something caught your eye, maybe if you were playing the game and you got owned by something and you want to go get that, then you know, I guess, you know, do whatever you feel, right? But those 2 lines I think are where I would start, or I would recommend a new player starts. Try not to play light tanks early on. I mean, these low tier, like 1, 2, 3 light tanks, those don't really count. But I'm saying, like, I would not recommend that a new player goes and gets a Sheridan, right? Because it's going to be very unforgiving. You might get there. You can grind your face off and get there, but like, you're not going to have a good time, because in order to do light tanks properly, you really have to have a lot of game knowledge, a lot of map knowledge that you probably won't have as a light tank, as a new player, sorry. And you will spend a lot of time exploded, and when you're exploded, you can't learn, right? So that's why one of the reasons I recommended the IS-7 line is it has enough armor to keep you alive, and so you'll learn from your mistakes. You get shot once, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and then you'll try not to do that again. But if you make a mistake in a light tank, you probably are just going to explode immediately, and then your team's going to lose. So that's what I would say. For new lines, do that. Consumables. This is going a little more in depth than I anticipated. So low tier stuff only gets 1 slot. It doesn't really matter. I guess probably just pick oh, I'm sorry, it gets 1 slot over here. I pick a small repair kit. Just go with that. It doesn't really matter. You're going to get out of these tiers before you know it. Let me see here. Tier 3, I think, gets 2. And so for these, you're probably going to want a small repair kit, small first aid kit. Just go with that until you're getting out. You're going to get out of these tiers pretty quick. Tier 4 is where you start to get three slots, and so what I would recommend, this is a sheriff account, so everything's made up and money doesn't matter. So this is what I would recommend for everybody at this level. If you're at the beginning level and you're just trying to figure things out, I would recommend small repair kit, small first aid kit, manual fire extinguisher. Now later on, once you get some games under your belt, and I could say maybe this is for intermediate folks, you should be running automatic fire extinguishers. For reasons I can go into in another video, because this is to keep it short. But for basics, for noobs, this is what you're going to want to do, because they're going to give you the benefits, but they're not going to cost you a lot of credits. And especially for new players, credits are a pinch. And that's one of the reasons I would recommend you don't use the large repair kits and large first aid kits, because they do give you a bonus. There is a reason to run them, but at a level of a new player, you're not going to, I don't want to say this, the bonus that you'll get from moving from a small repair kit to a large repair kit is not going to make it so that you are all of a sudden substantially better at the game. And so mostly what that's going to do is just drain your credits. So I would say stick to the small stuff first, and then there will be a point where, you know, and then you can sell these and make a bunch of money. That's what I would do, a bunch of credits. And that's what I would do. Don't worry about food. Don't worry about the gasoline or anything else that the various nations have. I would just stick with these 3 things until you... like I said, until you feel like you're at the intermediate stage, and then we'll cover that later. Crew. Okay, so this is important. So as you move up to tiers, and for instance, if you just finished the tutorial or whatever, and you're like the M3 Stewart, and you're like, this is great, I've got this crew that they gave me, and I think they give you I mean, this is a sheriff account, so it has all the perks, but they give you a crew that has has like a perk, I think, and you're going to go to the next one. You're like, oh, this is awesome, I've finally gotten there, and you move to the next one, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to click around and find it. Tech tree. So show me the garage. Okay. All right, so you got this little guy, and you're saying, great, I'm gonna go buy the M5 Stewart, or I'm gonna go buy the T6 medium tank, and then you do the things. And it says, all right, well, this is what it's gonna show you, right? Do you want crew for gold, which you probably don't have as a new player? Or do you want to do this and you'll pay a bunch of credits, or do you want the free stuff? You might be tempted to just say, just give me the free crew. It's just crew, why does it matter? Do not do this. Never ever do this. 50% crews are hot garbage. Even if you know what you're doing, and you're an expert at the game, playing with a 50% crew is going to make the tank so unusable and just perform like garbage that you're not going to have a good time. So I like to say, friends don't let friends use 50% crews. At the very minimum, you should always be using at least a 75% crew. Pay the credits. I know it sucks to jump 100,000 credits into a crew or whatever every time you move up tank, but it doesn't matter. The difference in performance is so significant. Like, it's huge. Like, I would never ever do you want to play with a 50% crew. Always, at least, and if you need to, if you've already done this and you're saying, oops, I already did that, what do I do now? You can always click this button and then update them. Like, if you paid for 50% and you got them for free and you're like, oh crap, I want to fix that, you can just train this here. And it'll upgrade them to 75%. This is what you want to do. The gold part, you know, to get them to 100%, that's, I wouldn't necessarily, like, if you're just like swimming in money and you don't care, then sure, do this, right? This is a bonus. But I would definitely at least do 75%. And that is going to make such a huge difference. Like, your reload's going to be shorter. You're going to aim in faster. You're going to aim in, your aiming circle is going to end up aiming in tighter. Like, it's just everything about it. Your view range is going to be higher. Your tank's going to turn faster. It's going to be faster. It's going to reverse. Just everything about the tank is going to be better. Do not ever use 50% crews. They're god awful garbage. So that's the beginner tips. Okay, and I will move on to the intermediate. Intermediate stuff. This is going to be basically reading a flank is what I'm going to try to, I guess, talk about here. So when you read a flank and you're trying to figure out when to run, when to fall back. So in this, I'm going to use this TanksGG website. I don't know if you've ever seen this or used this before, but like, this is the easier for me to figure out than try to get some gameplay examples. But basically, in if you've ever played Abbey, which is this map, Abbey, most of the fighting, most of the brawling happens in this area here, right? And so what I'm going to try to give an example of is, like, the red team is over here fighting and your guys are fighting here. And generally speaking, the fight first starts at this bubble, and this bubble. So what I'm going to try to say, I'm trying to, like, get to the point of, okay, if you are in a fight and you realize that your team is playing poorly, maybe somebody drove out here side on too far, they got tracked and now they're dead, or something like that. Like, your team is not doing well, or maybe there's like 10 tanks over here and you guys have 5. You just start paying attention to things like that. And if it looks like things are not going well, don't be afraid. I mean, obviously don't just bail and leave your friends to die unless they're already dead, right? So finding out when exactly you should run so that you can get the maximum out of the position that you're in, but also not be stuck here to die, is kind of an art, right? So that's hard, and you'll have to just practice that. But the thing what I'm trying to say is just to be mindful of the condition of your teammates. If you're over here, you still need to know what these guys are doing, because if these guys all die, then the enemy gets to drive all the way up here and shoot you in the butt. So it's important to note that what your team is doing. If they're doing things poorly and they're about to fall back, they're about to die maybe, these are the different fallback positions. This is position 2, right here, and also here. So these guys would fall back to this, and these guys would fall back to here. And these are the next, like, the next places. If these positions fall, this is where the fight happens next, here and here. So you might, if these guys are mostly dead and there's just one tank here and it's only got, like, you know, maybe, you know, it's a one shot, okay, he's dead. Don't try to save the game, because he's going to be, you aren't going to help anything. You're both just going to get run over. So in this case, you'd run back here and prepare. So like, then when the enemy team pushes through and they do this, you get a couple of shots, maybe you even hold them off depending on what tank you're in, and vice versa. Same thing for here. And then from here, again, the next fallback position is here and on the ramp, right? So this is important, because then when you pull the enemy here, you are providing resistance, you're providing spotting here, and you want to pull back around this corner enough that your team, if they are sitting like right here or something like that, if they're sitting in those places, or maybe right there, then you are pulling back so that when the enemy comes this way, they get shot by your teammates. Hopefully they're paying attention. But you know, you want to make sure that you're spotting the enemies, and you've got this cover here, and ditto, you're spotting the enemies, you've got this cover here, and then so that when they pull around this corner, this guy shoots here, and so basically that's something to just keep in mind, is to just keep your minimap large. Keep an eye on what your flank is doing and what your teammates are doing and how they're behaving. If they're playing well, then great. If they're not playing well, maybe think about when the best time would be to run away, because you don't want to be caught getting run over with the rest of them. That's going to be the way to start to increase your performance to the next level, is to keep these things in mind. And this is just one example. There are lots of examples on lots of different maps. I just picked this one because it was, I don't know, the easiest one for me to draw on, basically. But yeah, so that's that one. And then the next one is for advanced folks. And for advanced folks, basically what I wanted to do was talk about. Let me get over to it real quick. Okay, so in this game, what I wanted to talk about here is maximizing tracking and assist and so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to pause the game here at 11:32. In this game, and what I wanted to talk about here for advanced folks is if you're trying to mark tanks, right? You're trying to get your second mark on a tank, you're trying to get your third mark on a tank. It's important first to realize how that works. So when you get marks of excellence in World of Tanks, what it does is it takes the damage that you do in a game, plus either the higher, it takes the higher of the two, whether it's spotting assistance or tracking assistance. Those are tracked separately. So if you track somebody and they get hit for 1,000 damage, that's yours. If you spot somebody and they get shot for 1,000 damage, that's yours. At the end of the game, it might say 2,000, but you're only going to take the higher of the two. It's not, so if you do 1,000 damage, you get 1,000 tracking and 1,000 spotting. Combined for the marks of excellence, it's only 2,000. It's not 3,000. So use that to your advantage. Start thinking about these things. Maybe you already do know these things. But what I want to talk about in this particular little section is how to keep that in mind and try to make the maximum out of every game. And so, yeah, let's just show you the video here. So we're watching the Oscar playing his STB1. And he's going to roll around the corner here, and the game is, they're winning, right? The game is kind of, I'm not going to say it's over, but it looks like we're going to definitely do okay. Then Oscar finds a 268 with his face, puts a good shot in, and then this 268 is going to try to push up and try to, continue to fight, and Oscar makes the smart play to shoot the tracks off and stay out of sight. He's staying out of the gun. And this is perfect because the T100 LT sees this, and the T100 LT gets to farm this damage, and it doesn't matter because the Oscar is getting all of this assistance, right? So every time this T100 shoots, everybody's shooting this guy, and this is all Oscar's spotting, or sorry, this is all his tracking. And so he got one shot of damage for himself, but now he's gotten like 1,300 assistance from him keeping the tank tracked. And that's one of those things where if he had simply shot the tank and then tried to duke it out, he probably would have gotten shot a second time. He probably would have, maybe he would have died. Maybe he would have gotten maybe one more shot off and then died. But by doing this, he was able to get the tracking assistance, which then is going to give him a lot more performance toward his marks of excellence, if that's something you're working towards. And so things like that. If the game is nearly wrapped up and you find a tank that's on full health because they've been camping in the back the whole game, and the team is descending on them, right? You guys have 10 guys and it's 10 versus 1, and this guy's definitely going to die. It's tempting to get that one shot of damage in and get your damage up as much as you can. But if you're trying to min-max your marks of excellence, the most important thing is to try to get more spotting and more assistance. So I would say the best course of action there is to try to track that guy. So when everybody else on your team eats him, that's all your tracking assistance. So, yep, that's, I guess those are my tips. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think. This is trying something new here, and, if you guys like this, I'll keep making some more. So, all right, thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.